Hi, I'm Kelly. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make this pendant. It's worked on a frame, so we're using lots of different gauges of wire this time. I've written a list in the description below of everything you'll need to make this pendant. There's also links to my Etsy shop and my Facebook page and my Instagram. If any of you are on there, I'd love to see all your finished pieces. So I thought we'd try something a bit different today and work on a frame. Thanks for watching, and I hope you've all subscribed. Don't forget if you haven't. Normally on my tutorials we just work with the two gauges of wire, the 0.8mm, which is 20 gauge, and the 0.315, which is 28 gauge. But today, because we're going to be working with frames, we're going to need some extra gauges. So I've got 1.5mm wire, which is 14 gauge, and I've cut one length at 8 inches, that's 20 centimeters. I've got 1mm wire, which is 18 gauge, and I've cut a length of 8 inches again, which is 20 centimeters. And the 0.8mm wire, which is 20 gauge, I've cut two lengths at 20 inches each, which is 51 centimeters. The weaving wire, 0.315mm, which is 28 gauge, you'll need about 400 centimeters of that. I've wound mine onto a bobbin, but you can cut lengths as you go if you prefer. You'll need a little teardrop cabochon. You could probably work with an oval one if you don't have a teardrop one. This one's quite small, 20mm by 12mm across. Okay, tools. I'm going to be using quite a lot of tools today. You don't necessarily have to. I'm going to be using two different types of cutters because the thicker wire tends to cripple these little cutters. So I'll be using the bigger pliers for the bigger wire and then the smaller cutters for the smaller wires. Now I've got pliers, round nose pliers. I'm going to be using these bail pliers as well, if you have any bail pliers. They're good with the thicker wire as well, but you can use your round nose pliers if you don't have any. And I'm going to be using the nylon pliers to straighten out the wires after they've gone round in the frame, but if you don't have them you can just use your fingers, that's fine. And I think that's everything. Let's get started. So to start with, take your 1.5mm wire, which is your 14 gauge, and your stone, and what we're going to do is we're going to make a frame to sit this stone into. If you're using a slightly different size stone, then you'll just need to adjust your frame to fit it as we go. So start in the middle of the wire. What we're going to do is we're going to gently bend this wire to roughly resemble the shape stone that we're working with. So I'm going to make a nice teardrop shape with my wire, and it needs to be bigger than the stone, so we've got plenty of room to play with the design. Just gently bending it around. I'll try the stone for size. I can make it a little bit tighter than that. And we don't want it too tight, and we don't want it too big. That's about just right. Where the wires meet at the top, we need to bend those out a little bit. And this one, I'm going to do it a little bit lower down. think the key to working with this thicker wire is to having quite a bit of leverage to be able to bend the wire, because it is quite tough to bend. I'm going to keep checking the size to make sure my stone will still sit in there, because I'm tending to make it a bit smaller. We don't want it to be too small that the stone won't sit in there. So what I'm going to do is cut this wire here and make a curl here that's lower than this one. And I'll cut this wire a bit longer to make a bigger loop on this side, using my big cutters. So I'm going to curl these ends using my bail pliers, because they're a little bit tougher. You can use your round nose pliers to do this. Make sure you use the base of the, make sure you use the bottom end of it here, where it's stronger. So I'm going to curve this one around. I use the smallest size just to get the shape started. Pull it down a bit, just like that. On the other side, I'll do the same, curling it the other way. Hope you can't hear my wrists clicking. There we go, starting to take shape. This thick wire is a wrestle, so that's my frame shape so far. Stone just about fits in there. I'll just get away with that. So I've adjusted mine slightly. You want to make it so that the stone fits nicely inside, but there's enough space around, because we're going to add some more wires in there to go across the back. So you just want a small gap all the way around the edge of your stone, preferably. And that's the frame done. Quite a simple one, really. You take your weaving wire, and we're just going to secure this top piece together. I'm going to wrap it 3 times around that bottom bar. Then I'm going to go around both. So I'm going to have to cut my bobbin off. We only need a short bit of wire for this. So I'm going to go 3 times around both wires, hold it together. And then 3 times around this bottom part of the frame, just to attach it, finish off the weaving wire really. Give those tail ends a pull before you cut it off. And flatten them down a bit with your pliers. And next take your 1mm wire, which is the 18 gauge. And we're going to attach this to the frame. This is the way I do this, and I'm sure everybody has their own way of doing frames and things, but this is my method of doing it. What we're going to do is attach the end of the wire to the frame. I'm just going to curl it around that frame wire a few times just to secure it on there. And again, it's gone really dark. Whenever I decide to do a video, it goes really dark, and it's going to start raining again in a minute. So there it is, that's my 1mm attached. So we need this wire to be underneath. So it's underneath the frame. And the way I'm going to do it is, obviously I've attached here. I'm going to wrap it around a few times here, and then I'm going to come back and attach it again over here, and that makes a nice area for the stone to sit in, and it'll secure it nicely in place. So envisage the triangle shape, and that's what we're aiming for. So I'm going to take this around about there. And I'll go round again. So now I'm going to bring the wire over here, but we need to bend it right there at the bottom so that it sits where we want it to. So the stone has a surface to sit on. pull that down a little bit, I think. So now we just need to secure it here. So bending it around. I think this wire might be a bit too long for this job really. So we've got a nice flat place for our stone to sit. So I'll just try it for size. And that sits quite snug within those wires. That's what we needed the bit of extra space in there for. So now we just need to cut these extra wires off. Flatten them round. So they haven't got any sharp bits sticking out. And that is the basic frame done. So now take one of your 0.8mm pieces of wire, which is 20 gauge, and find the middle of it. And we're going to attach it as high as we can here, and we want this bit to be the bit that sits there. So post half of it through. What I'm going to do is just try and secure it by wrapping it around a few times like I did with the other wire. This thinner wire is a bit easier to handle. Just a bit hard to show you what I'm doing. Working with such long wires. It was really fiddly, so I did it off camera, but I've just wrapped them around a few times. And I'm just going to squeeze them at the base because I want them to come out from the same part, and one's from the front and one's from the back. them a little bit so that they sit together. Ended up now one's a little bit longer than the other. We could start doing a weave on this one to keep it out of the way, and then we'll add our second wire, because it could get a bit of a handful with all 4 wires coming off there. So we are going to add the second one in the same way, but we'll do a weave on this one first. So take your weaving wire, and we're going to wrap 3 times around that top wire. I'm holding the piece upside down now. And then making sure your wires are pushed together, because we want them to be quite close to each other. We'll then do 3 wraps around both wires. But don't pull it too tight, because we still want a gap in the middle there. So a 3-3 weave over the 2 wires. I'm going to do quite a few of these. I've just discovered when you're doing a 3-3 weave like this, it can be quite tricky, because it's basically upside down. I normally do them the other way with the tight wraps around the bottom wire. So it's actually easier if you tip it forward to do around your top wraps. It's a lot easier. And then stand it back up to do around both wires. Does that make sense? Tip it forward, and it's just easier to wrap around there. And keep pushing your weave together as you go. So I've done 15 repeats of that. Just going to cut the tail end off. I'm going to leave a length on that wire. Now we can add the other length of wire we got left, which is the 0.8 20 gauge wire. So find the middle point again, as we did before. And post it through there. And then you need to wrap this wire around where that gap is. About 3 wraps like we did before, just there. I'm going to do it off camera because the wires are a bit long. So there I've attached my wires. I've bent them so that they sit next to each other. And to do this, now to do the same as that one, 15 repeats of that 3-3 weave over those 2 wires. So I've done 15 of that 3-3 weave over those 2 wires as well. Cut that tail end off. So take the top weave, we're going to gently curve that one around. Better pop the little stone in. I'm going to curve it around. We don't need the stone in just yet. It can stay there for now. Trying to keep it nice and flat. That kind of mimics the base shape a little bit. And I need to continue this weave because I want this weave to come all the way around, and then I'm going to tuck it into there. So I need to add about another 5 or 6 repeats on there. So I've got a total of 22 repeats on there now. What I'm going to do is we're going to take this weave around the bottom of the stone. Looking quite nice there. And then we need to add another few repeats just to get it so I can pop the wire through that gap there. So my weave now reaches where I want it to. So I'm going to take these wires and post them through the gap between the stone and the frame. And I'm sorry if I speak quietly, I'm trying to remember to speak a little bit louder so you can hear what I'm saying. I get a bit distracted. I focus on what I'm doing rather than what I'm saying. So that's gone through the frame. Like that. Still got a gap underneath at the moment. My weaving wires ended up not very long, so I'm going to cut that off and reattach a new piece to there. So I've cut the bobbin free from the other line, and I've left about 1 metre of weaving wire on there. So now we're going to weave over these 2 wires. I'm just going to straighten mine out a little bit. So we're going to weave over these 2 wires. We're going to do the same weave as we did before with the 3-3 weave. So go 3 times around the bottom wire, 3 times around both wires, and this time our single weave, single wraps are on the bottom wire. It's a bit easier to do this way round. So we need to do 10 repeats of that. 3 wraps around the bottom and then 3 wraps around the 2 wires. So I've done 10 repeats and I've cut the tail off at the beginning. So now take this weave, I'm squeezing it forward a little bit so it pinches on that base there. We want it to curve around. pliers. Just trying to flatten it out a little bit. And I'm going to curve it around this way a little, like that. So hard to show you with all these long wires everywhere. So we've got this kind of shape going on. So I've adjusted the shape of that a little. So now we're going to take these two wires and we're going to post them through there and through this frame as well. So straight down behind all of it. It's a bit hard to show you this close. See if I can get it in the camera. As you push them both through, it's a bit hard to not let them cross over each other, so we'll have to sort that out in a bit once they're through. I'm going to have to cut that weaving wire while I can still see it. And that to go right through to the bottom. Like that. Cups the stone a little more. So now take this weave and we're going to do what we did with the other one. Bend it around. We want it to curve in a slightly tighter arc than the first one, so it'll sit nice and tight below where that one is, like that. And my weave's a little bit long. I want my weave to finish about here, so I'm just going to unwrap these 3 repeats. So I've undone that weave a little, and what I'm going to do now is open up these wires. We're going to do a figure of 8 weave. Just a short one. So we go around the bottom wire 3 times, and I'm going to go straight over that top wire, and that'll get my wires in position for this weave. We go around that one 3 times, come over the bottom wire, go around that 3 times, then over the top wire and go around that 3 times, and then just keep repeating that. Try not to pull your wires too tight because you'll end up pulling your base wires together. You want to keep them quite wide apart really, so that the weave moves along there quite nicely. You want to keep your wires quite wide. So there's my figure of 8 weave. and about 8 or 9 repeats there of it. So now what we're going to do is, the front wire is going to go through here and sit next to that one, come through underneath the base there and sit next to these. There's a nice gap there already from putting the other wires through. It's always hard not to misshape what you're doing. If I press down on my weave, I'll get a nice curve on that wire, like that. And then I'll just straighten that one a little bit. Put that next to those. And this one goes around to the back. Like that. My stone's popping right out of there. And I'm going to take this wire, and where I've got those three, and this one goes around the back of those three, I'm going to go around them. Like that. Need to fix my stone back in. That's what I've got so far. So now take this wire that we've just wrapped around those other bare wires, and we're going to post it. If we turn to the back so we can see, we're going to secure this down now so it doesn't keep falling out. We want to post this wire so it sits alongside the stone. I'm holding the stone down in place because it'll pop out again. So that wire wraps around those three, and then it goes underneath the frame wires and up the side of the stone. It needs to sit along the edge of the stone really. So I've pulled it forward, so now it's going along the edge of the stone there. Just stop the stone wiggling about. So now I'm going to take that wire over the peak of the stone and around that shape at the back, the big thick wire at the back, and get around to this side. And then we're going to post it down so it follows along the edge of the stone there. Post it straight down there. That'll stop it moving about. Needs to go behind that frame wire as well. I'm going to pull those frames back over a bit now, those weaves, I'll push them out the way earlier. So taking these 2 wires of the 3 that's trapped there and bring it over to the front. I'm going to gently start to scoop it around, and we've got quite a big gap here at the bottom of that figure of 8 that we need to cover up. So I'm going to do a big scoop around, and then I'm going to carry on scooping around. Like that. And I'm going to take this 3rd wire and bring that forward and just follow that shape. Like that. So holding all 3 wires now, and you want to hold them firmly so that they don't cross over each other. I'm going to bend up, so I'm really squeezing on the stone so we can bend these wires up like this. Now I'm going to separate out the top one. I'm going to leave him there. But these 2 bend up a bit further. The one now I'm going to follow over that one, and then this one I'm going to curve around like that. But this looks a little bit crazy, but it will work out, I promise. I'm going to take my weaving wire, I'm going to wrap around the middle wire, I'm going to coil around it a little bit. I like to do my coils on the end, it's a little bit easier, and then slide it down into position. About there. And now I'm going to wrap around, just need to let a bit of length on my wire, wrap around those 2 wires a couple of times, then I'll go back to wrapping around that middle wire. So now we'll wrap around this wire as well. A couple of times. I'm going to have to cut the bobbin free. Going to need to secure this to the weave or the frame or whatever we can reach. So I've pushed my wire through next to the stone there, so I can secure that down firmly. I'll go around that base wire a few times to secure it. So I've gone round the base a few times, then I've popped it back through. So now we need to carry on wrapping around that middle wire. And then when it reaches the top here, I shall wrap around both wires, and then I shall carry on doing a single coil up there a little bit further. Like that. Now I need to secure this wire. I'm going to cut some of that weave wire off because it's too long. So now we need to secure this to that back frame wire. And I'll wrap around it a few times. And then I'll bring it back to the front and go underneath that wire. Go around that a few more times. I'm going to cut that weaving wire there. Now I can trim some of these other wires. This one I'm just going to curl that and finish it down there, so I can cut that about there. This one I'm going to curl around as well and finish that off. So I shall cut that one about there. This one I'm going to secure by wrapping around the frame and cut it a bit shorter. Try and keep the shape. I am really having trouble today. First it goes dark, and then I'm fiddling so much with the long wires, and now I've cut my wire too short, so I'm going to fix that off camera as well. So I've rescued that, I've wrapped it around, and I managed to keep the shape at the front there, and all I'm going to do is now curl these two with my round nose pliers. So with this last wire, it's not very long, what we're going to do is feed it up towards the curls at the top there. We're going to curl it around. And then I'm going to post it down there. So when you're doing a video, you're supposed to do everything in one swift movement, and it all works out right first time, and it's not always the way. I've got my shape here, and I posted it through, and it's come out there. But this design is so versatile. You can do anything you want, and everything you do will more or less work, because you can always fasten it into the frame at different points as you go. So there's so many things that you can do. I'm going to cut these wires off. And that one. And then this last wire, I'm going to bend over to the front, and I'm just going to finish it off in a curl against that weave there. So I'm going to need a little bit of weaving wire, just a little bit. Attach it onto that wire, 3 wraps. I'm going to secure it to the figure of 8 weave. So go through the weave, then go under the stone again, under the wire. Make sure the wire's pushed flat against the weave. And then I shall attach it again. I'm not having much luck today. I hope you're having more of a successful time than me. Right, I've got it. Go under the wire and then round that a few times. Cut that weaving wire. So now I'm going to cut that wire, curl that around with my pliers, cut that tail off as well. And there we have it, little moonstone worked on a frame. And you can really do anything you want with this design. You could continue these weaves all the way back up to here and attach them back onto this side. You could bring these weaves down and finish them here. You could add a new wires in and do more weaves that come around here. You can do absolutely anything you want. You could do a bigger frame. You could add coiled coils. I've changed a few little things. I've reduced the sizes of my curls, and I've added a little bit of weaving wire here, just around there, just to hold that wire down there. And that's it, we're done. Hope you've enjoyed this tutorial and you found it useful. And I've answered a few questions if any of you had about working with frames. It's quite a simple concept and you can do anything you want, you really can. They're so versatile. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and thank you to everybody who has. And I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.